in-laws and elders who have joined in, because I think financial planning is something that is important at all stages of life. So let's start. Anushree, if you can move on to the next slide. So I think primarily the important reason for this session for you to understand is extremely important. That you have taken care of others as an elder, and now you have to take care of your future. And it is at this stage of life where you're probably already headed to or getting to a stage where you may not be earning and contributing to the kitty, and now you have to use the money from the kitty. So during this period, I think it's important that you have security, your freedom, and then you leave behind a legacy. Because without planning, this is going to be stressful. Stressful for parents, stressful for the child. Sometimes conversations don't happen openly, and therefore it remains stressful for both people. And therefore, the idea is that we'll give you some takeaways, which I think you can practically use. So we are going to demystify, or sorry to use the word, but dumb down the session in a way that everybody can understand. And sometimes it's very simple things that people may tend to forget. So I have to start with, if you can go to the next. It's time for you to just think about what is it that your biggest uncertainty is today on retirement. Is it that you will outlive your money? Is it the managing of rising healthcare costs? Is there an issue with the legacy and you want to leave it without conflict? Is it you want to create a reliable monthly income? You're worried about keeping with inflation and lifestyle changes. So if you think through what it is, and for some people it may be one item, for some people it may be more than one item. And it is absolutely fine to feel this way. Because if you have not planned for your retirement, then these questions keep coming up from time to time. That, can I spend this? Should I indulge myself in this? Because I'm not sure what tomorrow will bring. And that tomorrow can be not just next few years, but it could be 25, 30 years. And therefore, the worry is that, okay, it looks fine for the next 5, but what happens to the next 20 after that? So depending on whatever stage you are, and for those who might think that they are very confident, then it's important to back it up with numbers and look at assumptions. And in my mind, while we all, financial planners are experts at coming up with a number and saying, here is a number, the reality is that life happens. And therefore, the life doesn't move in a linear pattern. And there will be surprises on the way, there'll be bonuses on the way. And therefore, the ability to maneuver yourself through and look at a range of outcomes that could happen will allow you to start feeling more confident. If you have a range and say, okay, in the best case scenario and circumstances that I can think of, where will I be? What will be in the worst case? And then realize that there is probably a realistic situation which is somewhere in between. And I think that is something that we are attempting to do today. If we can go to the next. So I think the important thing in retirement is not just finances. There is an emotional aspect that you need to take care of, because you were used to bringing home some amount of money and contributing to the corpus of the family for your family needs and your personal needs. And now suddenly that has stopped. Whatever date it happens, it will be sudden. The regular income may stop. You may be a consultant, so you may get consulting income. You may, do something which gives you mental comfort, and also maybe provides you financial support, but it may not be at the levels that you were used to. Even if the money is there, sometimes there is this issue of I had status, I had position, I had infrastructure set up where I used to, and there was something to go to every day. A lot of those are emotional issues that also come in the way of your dealing with your finances. So it's very important for us to even make sure that those are addressed. Yeah, if we can go to next. So let's jump into the situations that retirees will face, uh, and I think it's important for you to recognize this fact that number one, the real impact of inflation is something that people are not very comfortable or used to, particularly if the retirement age, time is a long period of time. So it's easy for us to think of what happened 5 years, 10 years ago, what was the cost of, buying masala dosa or buying a sandwich and what it is today. But it's very difficult for you to think of what it was 30 years ago. And if you're going to spend 25, 30 years in retirement, you have to take that type of outlook because you want your money to outlast you. Um, and I think the crucial part in this is the expectation of how long you will live or you require the money to last you. Um, Frankly, what we have seen, and probably if you look around as well, you will see that the life expectancy of people living till longer has gone up. And when we do financial plans, we take and assume that you will live till 100. And in my opinion, which I keep telling my planning team, is that for some people, we are underestimating this. Uh, and it's not that everybody might cross a particular age or number, but if you are one of those people who does, you don't want a situation where you've not planned for that. The third thing I think that happens is that you were used to getting salary income and therefore you had certain investments. But during retirement, you have decided that I will have this one income stream which will take care of my needs. It could be I have property, so I have rental income, and that is fine. It's more than covering my expenditure, so I'm fine. But we've had situations in the past couple of decades for sure where there have been, say, the global financial crisis, where everybody struggled for trying to get out of that mess that they were in. And for you, if you had three properties which you had rented out, and you had the good fortune to do that, suddenly you found two out of the three tenants vacating. And then you are struggling to find a replacement, and therefore the income sort of stopping for some time. So it's not to do with your net worth. In retirement, I think the very important piece is cash flow, and therefore the ability to get even small sums of money when you need them. Uh, and finally, I think the important piece is around health and health insurance and long-term care and things like that. And you may have also seen this happening to people around you, that the costs of medical intervention have shot up and continue to shoot up at a very, very fast pace. And therefore, not having a backup plan, which is beyond just health insurance, but even thinking of items which will not get covered through insurance, but they are medical in nature. For example, help, daily help that you need for your elders or for yourself when you are beyond a particular age, and you need to provide for that as well. So these are some of the mistakes that happen. We can go to the next. Uh, I think it's important for you to think through that when you plan for retirement, number one, we want to establish some income streams. That income stream could be from your own investments where I am getting some cash flow out of it, but on a regular and predictable basis. Uh, we need to make sure that the financial health is assessed, and we look at some numbers and assumptions in the numbers to see whether you're on course, you're in a healthy state of healthy situation. Then we need to know that okay, yes, there is some shortfall. Uh, and what is that quantum of shortfall? Is it something that happens every month? Is it lumped up during one part of the year when, let's say, my insurance premiums are due, or property taxes are due, or income taxes to be paid? Is that the time when I have shortfall? Then we can plan the cash flow accordingly, and then we use the investment portfolio to cover any gaps that you have in your retirement funding. Like I keep saying that cash flow becomes very important. So I need the money when I need it. And it's not that I have the money and I can take it out 1 year later, but I have a need which is in the next 3 months. So it's important for us to plan that as well. Yeah, you can go to next. So what are some regular income streams that you could think of? And some of these obviously are things that you possibly need to plan before you retire, and set in place a pension product, annuity, some sort of annuity income, that here is an amount that's going to come to me every month, every quarter. As we've spoken already about, is rental income. And you will have some amount of money in products like fixed deposits and bonds where there is regular interest that is coming through. Now, when you plan for all of these, I think it's important to keep in mind the first and foremost the longevity. So if I'm getting into an pension or an annuity income, and I've taken an annuity product for 10 years or 20 years, the question is going to be how is it going to be replaced at the end of 10 years or 20 years when your requirement may not have been completed. You still need some cash flow for the remaining tenure of your life. So you need to plan that one piece. The other is when I invest in things which have a fixed return, uh, but that fixed return is for a tenure. So if I put money in fixed deposits or in bonds today, which are 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, I know that I am hopefully guaranteed that that payout will happen. When I say hopefully, is that if I go and choose some risky sort of investments, then the worry is that if there is a issue with that institution, then I may stop getting my interest, and in fact, even my principal may be at risk. But assuming that you're putting money in very, very safe instruments, that fixed deposit, when it matures after 1 year or 3 years, when you renew it, the rate will not be the same, may not be the same. And we have seen this during the last couple of decades, particularly, that the interest rate fluctuate. And if anything, the trend is downward. So if I do a fixed deposit, had I done it 5 years ago, in 5 years probably is a bad time because pandemic came in, so a lot of things changed during that period. But say 7 years ago, I had done a fixed deposit. When I renew it today, the rate of interest that I will get is probably lower. And therefore, I assumed I will get 8% per annum on this 100 rupees I'm investing. Now, when I renew it, it becomes 7, or it's 6.5, or it's 7.25. And therefore, mentally adjusting to the fact that some amount has got reduced also is something that you need to take care of. We already spoke about rental income when there is a vacancy loss, or there's a gap between two rentals, then that is something that you need to uh, worry, or bring in a gap, bring in something else that fulfills that gap. And finally, and probably most importantly, is taxation. I think the way to look at any investment or compare one investment with another is to look at what is the rate of return you are getting, what is the tax you are paying on it, and whether after tax, and in fact even after inflation, is the amount, I mean, is your quantum sufficient to take care of the inflation after your taxes? And sometimes we tend to get swayed with something, oh, this is giving me 7%, 8%, 9% interest. But if I happen to be in the tax bracket, which maybe is 20% or even 30%, then for me, that return on that investment. So for two people in this call, two different people in this call, the return on a fixed deposit may be different, even though the bank is giving the same rate of interest. Because one person is falling in a 10% tax bracket, 1% is falling in a 20%, or one person is in a 30%. I'm taking tax numbers as just rounded off examples, but you know the exact tax rates that you will fall under. So you need to take care of, and calculate what is the return you're getting after tax when you do a comparative with any other product. Yeah, we can go to next. The important piece then is to figure out now how am I going to withdraw from the portfolio? And we tend to think of it as one big bucket, that I have this quantum of money and I need this amount of return. So I want everything to return me the same rate of interest or an average rate of interest. And sometimes as a result of that, there is a bit of inefficiency. So the way we think about it is when you plan for retirement, you need to bucket your requirements in three separate compartments. And we have said three, for you it may be two, it may be four, but you can break it up. But essentially we are saying there needs to be something you will have which is requirement for daily needs. And for that, there is what we will call as liquid bucket. Then we look at what are the uh, goals that I have in the next few years, maybe 2, 3, 4 years, and that we call as near-term bucket or the short-term bucket. So those are the near-term goals. And then there is a long-term bucket. I think this long-term bucket becomes a very important piece because when you plan for retirement, and I think people tend to say that, oh, you've retired, so now you should take lower risk. Uh, I possibly disagree with that because you have a long tenure that you're planning for. Some of the requirements uh, of the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years, yes, for those I agree there should be lower risk. But for those which you need after 5, 7 years, it is important that you invest in places which will generate growth so that it is resulting in surplus which you can use for a rainy day, which you can transfer later on to the short term and the liquid bucket. That's an important piece that you need to take into account. We've just elaborated this a little more in the next slide, um, where we say that your next 1 to 2 years requirement you put in liquid, and you can sort of modify these numbers marginally if you wish to. But we look at monthly requirements as what you need for your medical corpus or any other uh, requirements or targets that you have in the coming up in the next 1 to 2 years, where you will put all your money in stable assets. So the important piece of investing in this bucket is not to generate returns, but it's to ensure that I get that amount when I need it. So liquidity is the primary driver when I'm investing in this bucket. Then I look at things which I may need in the next 3 to 5 years. Okay, I need to, do some repairs to the house. There may be some travel. There is a gift that I want to give my child or my grandchild. So those things will come up in the short-term bucket, where major part of this investment will be into what we call stable assets. So for want of I mean, to make it simple for everyone, it will be fixed deposit and equivalent type of product. So there are mutual funds also which do this. But here the objective is, can I get returns which will be equal to inflation after tax? So I don't lose value in this, and I don't try and generate excess returns, so that when I generate or try and generate excess returns, I'll also be taking risk, and I cannot take risk in a shorter period of time. And finally, I have a long-term bucket where I can look at investing with some element of risk. But the idea is that the longer the tenure, the risk comes down in growth assets. And therefore, I get surpluses from this long-term bucket, which I can refill then the short-term bucket. Because what I'm doing today is I'm thinking of 5 years plus today. But when I go to 2 years after today, then that 5 year requirement will suddenly become 3 years. So I need to start moving some of that money into the short term bucket so that I reduce my risk for things which are coming up very, very shortly. Yeah, if we can go to the next. So let's take an example, and here is where possibly you will get to work on something after this session. You will be mailed this document where you can actually work on a document on a sheet and calculate for yourself uh, what are the numbers looking like. So here's an example of Mr. John and Mrs. Jane, who are 65 years old. Their household expense is 50,000 a month. Medical expense is 5,000 a month. The rental income, they are getting 20,000 per month. Pension, they are getting 10,000 per month. And they have a portfolio of mutual funds, fixed deposit, PPF of 70 lakh of rupees. And they have a health insurance, 25 lakh floater with them. So we can probably go to, Anushri, if we can share the sheet and we can look at this example. So what we have said is that the number of years for which we need to calculate this is 30 years. And whatever cells are marked in yellow on this sheet when you get it are things which you can modify and change, so that you can see the impact of what happens if you change a particular cell. If I change, say, long-term bucket returns from 8% to 9%, how will it impact it, etc. We'll be able to see that over there. Then we've put in monthly living expenses and the medical expenses. Now, the important piece here is we have taken the inflation rate for monthly living expenses to be 5%, but for medical to be 12%. And we've gone based on some research and data on this topic, and therefore medical expense is something that will rapidly shoot up for everyone as the number of years pass, and at the present moment it's 12%. Then we've also assumed that the income that you are getting, what is the rate of return that you're getting on that income, and we've assumed 5% increase in the rental income, of which you're getting 20,000 now. Every year will go up by 5%. Fixed deposit 10,000 rupees. You are earning 5% per annum, and that is going on for 5 years. For the rental income, you are assuming will last your entire lifetime. Then we put a number for the current assets. So you can see 70 lakh. Now this gives us some calculations saying that if you wanted to get a corpus today that will fund all your future expenses, you will need 1.53 crores of rupees in this example. And your future monthly income that you will get from your rental and FD, etc., for the number of years that you have put is 53.9 lakh. So the shortfall that you have to cover through your assets is 99 lakh 50,000 in this example. Your assets today are 70 lakh. Therefore, there is a shortfall of 29 lakh. And this is where the first set of shocks come saying, oh, no, oh my God, now I'm in this retired stage. How am I going to fulfill this gap? And as I keep mentioning, I think cash flow becomes important. And therefore, to understand what is the shortfall year on year, and because of inflation, as you can see, your rental income is growing at that 5%, but your medical expense is going up by 12% per annum. So your shortfall is increasing year on year. And for this particular retirement corpus that you have, which is 70 lakh, we are saying you break this up between liquid bucket of 6 lakh rupees, short-term bucket of 8 lakh 87, and the long-term bucket you can actually invest 55 lakh of rupees. Now, Anushri, if you can just go up a little bit, we can change one of the numbers and show them the impact. What happens if instead of 70 lakh, you had, say, 80 lakh of rupees? Okay. Now, as soon as I do that, obviously, and if you can change the long-term return also to 9%, what you did up, little higher up, yeah. Just assume that you get 1% higher there. So now you are seeing suddenly that your shortfall has dropped quite considerably. So if you remember, the money required to fund was 1.53 crore. It has dropped to 1.35 crore. And therefore the shortfall is just 6 lakh of rupees. We can restore back, sorry, the numbers, because I want to show them the other sheet, which is the important piece, where you as the children or the daughter or daughter-in-law, son-in-law, what you can do to take care of this shortfall. So that shortfall was 29 lakh of rupees. If we go to support from family sheet, so if you want to contribute as a child for your parent, then you say that I want to contribute this 29 lakh. If I want to do it in 10 years, I want to fulfill this gap, I will get, say, 8% return on that investment, and I will increase this amount every year by 10%, whatever that amount is. That amount is only 10,000 rupees, 10,900 rupees per month. If you invested for 10 years and got 8% per annum, then in 10 years, this 29 lakh gap will get fulfilled and completed. So you will get this sheet. In this sheet, as you can see, there are a couple of worksheets. The first sheet is going to tell you how this tool is calculated, what is there in it. It's more the theoretical part for those of you, particularly engineers, like to know how things got built. So it's all over here. Then there is a mention about the bucketing strategy and which type of products are going to be used in for 1 to 2 years, which one for 3 to 5, which one for 5 years plus, and then the analysis sheet. So hopefully you'll find this useful. This is good to play around, and this is something where I keep saying that there is no guarantee that that rate of return that we are putting in will actually be exactly 7%. It may be 7.2% for some time, then 7.5, then drop to 6.8. So you will see different rates of returns. And the question I can see on the chat is where you will find this. You will be getting this mailed this at the end of the session. Yeah. So I think doing some of these exercises will probably help you to get calmer at a time when you tend to be worrying about whether there is enough or not. So I think that's an important piece that I would suggest we take this forward. You can move to the next screen. I can see a hand up, but if you do not mind, if you can take the question at the end, it might help, because some of what you might be asking may be covered as we go forward. But otherwise, happy to take the question subsequently. Yeah, so we just went through this smart retirement allocator tool. can go to the next. So I think there are a few other things that I think are important, and sometimes you might need to help your parent. Sometimes the parent or the elder is in a position to do this. Number one, I think over time, uh, we all have the tendency to, I don't know for what reason, but somehow we create new bank accounts. Either we moved employment, so the employer said, open this bank account, that account, the old account continued. Or you had the habit of using one account for investments and one account for something else, maybe rental income, and your rental income has stopped, but I continue to have the account. So I think it's important to create and make sure that bank accounts are consolidated. The fewer you can manage with, the better it is. And for if you are helping your parent, it may be good to have a joint account in which your name is also there, so that you can help in operating the account when there is a need. Uh, and of course, we today know the advantage of automation, and I know some of the elders are hesitant to do certain things online. But at least for regular bill payments, whether it's your phone bill, electricity bill, uh, you know, any other gas bill, whatever subscriptions that you have, if those can be automated from your bank account, then at least the worry that, oh, I forgot to pay the bill, and we watch this a lot in Bollywood. The electricity is cut now, you forgot to pay, you spend the money somewhere else. All those things will not happen. Um, and of course, you need to make sure that the credit card, debit card, UPI, all of this is linked to the bank account. Then you make sure that there is a monthly withdrawal plan. And I know youngsters know the concept of mutual funds, know the concept of SIP for sure, which we use in that retirement example. What is the amount I need to put every month? And typically you would say, okay, great, I will do a systematic investment plan for that. The systematic withdrawal plan is probably a much more powerful tool. Um, and for, using um, say mutual funds to invest and then doing a withdrawal plan and saying I need 5,000 rupees every month from this particular investment, so I'll guarantee that amount coming into my bank every month on the first of the month. So that it takes care of cash flow. But importantly, what happens from a tax standpoint is that it's treated as first in, first out in terms of units. And therefore, in the initial months, what might happen when you start doing a systematic withdrawal plan, that you withdrew 5,000, but the cost of that withdrawal, or the investment cost of the number of units you withdrew, was 4,800. So income is only 200 rupees, and you're paying tax on a very, very small amount. Uh, it's a reverse of EMIs. So those of you who borrowed money for housing or anything like that, you will know that when you pay regular and fixed amount is calculated for you as equated monthly installment that you pay every month. In the initial months, large part of it goes towards principal, very towards interest. Very little goes towards principal. So you take a 20-year loan and say after 5 years, is my loan outstanding three-fourths of the total amount that I took? No, it's not. It's significantly more because a large part of it has gone towards interest. And then towards the end, a lot of it goes towards principal. Uh, and also, I think it's important if you name your investment, because if you can make sure that this particular investment is being done for retirement purpose, or you call it whatever name that appeals to you, peace of mind in my old age, or whatever you want to call it, then you tend to make sure that that investment continues in the long run, and you don't tend to use that money for other short-term requirements. So it's important to do dedicated. There's one other issue on this whole piece of taking care of accounts for your parents, but I'll come to that in the legacy part. It's a very important piece that I will cover as we move forward. Yeah, so this is the part where you really want to make sure that you are aging gracefully. Uh, and for this, if you can go to the next. Uh, I think the important piece, as we have spoken earlier, is this medical inflation cost. So, health insurance, I think people tend to think, okay, that's enough. I've taken care of it. And I am going to plug in one thing for the youngsters, that please keep in mind that with inflation being what it is on health insurance, the amount of cover that a youngster needs for on health insurance is far larger than somebody who's older, because the number of years for which you need to protect is lesser for an elder, but it's a lot more for a youngster. And in health insurance, there's no inflation adjustment. When you take a cover for, say, 50 lakh of rupees or 1 crore, it's fixed. And you're thinking today my expense is likely to be only 10 lakh of rupees. If A, B, C happens, it will be 10. If this happens, it's 5. If this happens, it's 15. But that same 10 lakh or 15 lakh, if 12% inflation, and here is studies which is saying 11.7, but it's hovered in double digits for a long time. It was only low during pandemic, surprisingly, but otherwise, it's been in close to double digit type of return, which means that 15 lakh of rupees in the next, say, 6 to 7 years is going to be 30 lakh. If you take 12, 14 years later, that is going to be 60 lakh of rupees, the same 15 lakh. So it's something that you need to take care of. But apart from the health insurance, what happens is preventive health care, diagnostics, dental, vision, hearing care, doctor consultation, regular medicine, the long-term care of assisted living, uh, which is I need a help uh, for taking care of effectively not being in a hospital but getting help at home, or it's not even hospital but I just need assistance, so I need to pay for it. Uh, those all will eat into the portion of what your health cover will not take care of, the health insurance will not take care of, and therefore you need to provide for this cash flow. That's a very important piece uh, to take care of. Can we move to the next? Uh, and therefore, the simple example, if your monthly medical expense requirement is 10,000 rupees, you need it for 30 years. Again, we are taking the 12% medical inflation cost. And today I need 75 lakh of rupees year mark. So that just 10,000 rupees a month for the next 30 years, but inflation adjusted, is going to, it's going to be required. And this we are assuming you are getting 7% post tax on this money. If you are uh, uh, willing to take more risk and you're lucky and you get more return, maybe you need slightly less. But chances are in India, particularly as India gets more and more developed, it is likely that rate of inflation will come down. That happens in developed countries. And therefore, returns that you will get from safer instruments will start falling. So we'll need to take care of this amount of money for your medical costs. Uh, yeah, if you can go to the next. Uh, yeah, so there's a bunch of things that I think are important that you look at. So first and foremost, if you have a health insurance policy, do check whether there are limits, there are exclusions, there is a renewal age, so that if at all there is a gap, then you need a top-up plan that is available to take care of uh, that difference. Um, and I'm not getting into the details of this. Of course, we can answer any questions on this later, but that's number one. Number two, emergency numbers, doctor's number, ambulance, bunch of things that you need to take care of, and have it on speed dial, not just parents' phone, but maybe even your phone, because you don't know who is going to require this. Because we've seen a situation where one family member, youngster, had everybody's numbers, and when that person was hospitalized, nobody knew whom to contact and where everything was kept. So just make sure there's some backups in place. uh, of course, you need to also build a health emergency file, so put in all the numbers, etc. The policy numbers, doctors, hospitals. ID proof becomes very important. So, and that's what I wanted to cover when I mentioned something else to be done. That I think it's important for each one of you, doesn't matter what age you are, to look at uh, your ID proofs and make sure they are all in the same name. So whether you have your passport, Aadhaar, driving license, PAN card, and income tax department, your names should look, should be the same. So if I write my name as first name, initial of father's name, last name, then make sure it is there everywhere. Because we tend to have, in some places I will write full name, full father's name. Some places I'll only write name and surname. And in India, we know that if you are from the south, you sometimes may be writing surname first, then an initial, sometimes initial first. So if you keep it uniform, it's much easier, because tomorrow the institution may say, I don't agree. Yes, you are the nominee, or you are the, and I think this goes even to nominees. Uh, so you are the nominee, but sorry, your name is showing as L Navlaki, but you are now giving me a document which says Lovai Navlaki. So I don't know whether this is the same person. So it's very important to get it in place and store it digitally. And of course, for admission into hospital, the first thing anybody wants is Aadhaar card copy in India. So I think all family members should have the Aadhaar card in digitally stored with them. So whoever is going accompanying them to the hospital can at least show that Aadhaar card and get that done. Then, of course, depending on the age of your senior, whether you need to have the long-term care services. Um, there are various names and nursing home facilities, etc. Uh, the possibility of paid help. What is the physical infrastructure changes that may be needed at home, if that is a requirement? And of course, if you think that the surplus or the amounts that your parents have accumulated may not be adequate, this is your time to start investing in your name. You could keep it in your name, but you know that you have earmarked it and it's available for them if they do need it. Um, and as human beings, each one of us has egos. The parent also has an ego. I don't want to ask the child. The child thinks, oh, I should do all of this for the parent. And then sometimes there's a tussle because you are actually trying to do good. Uh, so you'll have to balance this well, but you create that in your name. It doesn't have to transfer to them if they feel uncomfortable about it. And therefore, you basically are taking, actually imagining scenarios or situations where something could happen. And I do pray nothing of this happens, but it's important to have a plan in place for emergency. And then, if nothing comes through, great, you can still utilize that money and enjoy that money in future. Uh, so it's important this piece on the legacy portion, finally, in terms of making sure that it transfers to the next of kin and goes smoothly. And some of this I did cover earlier. We can go to the next. Um, is that it's important for you to know that when you have a nomination, that is not transfer of ownership. Uh, So basically, nomination is just a method by which the nominee will act as a trustee on behalf of the recipient of the money. And the legal ownership typically gets transferred if you have a will in place. Then typically you would say, okay, now XYZ is the legal owner of this money, because this was the wish of the person who passed and who has listed where that person's assets will transfer. The will is not necessary to be registered, But if it is registered, it's of course much smoother. Um, and to create a will, and I would suggest everyone who has assets, doesn't again matter what age you are, write down a will. It can be simple, saying this is my list of asset, this is the ownership. If there are differences, then mark out the differences and say this is how I'd like these assets to be transferred. And you can keep modifying this will as and when life goes by. So you are today, let's say, a young person and single. You can write a will tomorrow. Once you're married, you want to change the will. You can do that. When you have children, you want to change it further. You can keep doing that. Um, if you have minor or dependent beneficiaries, then there is possibly the need for a trust. Um, I think important for you to have a digital asset plan. So what are all the online passwords, logins, etc. that you have? Where are you going to store them? Uh, and I think in India, what is not possibly treated with sort of attention is a power of attorney in case of incapacity. So the will, etc., works when you pass away. But if you're living, but you are not in a position to act, then who is going to take decisions on your behalf? So power of attorney possibly needs to be taken care of or provided as well. Uh, uh, and I think the only other thing I will say is that apart from the will, trust, etc., that we have spoken of, in case you have properties which are situated in Mumbai, Chennai, Calcutta, then there is a need for a probate. So in those cases, definitely a will is necessary so that the transfer of the asset is smooth. Uh, so really, I think what your family should know isn't optional. You have to organize details of assets, contacts, passwords, medical file, policies. Share that document. Don't just store it. It may be good to sit with the family and go through this document together so that everybody is aware about this. Um, and of course, the important piece is about scams and frauds for elders. I think we do see a lot of push happening in terms of emails, WhatsApp messages, frightening messages, phone calls, saying if you don't do this, this will happen. We need to just think through and be calm about these. It's typically regulatory authorities for sure do not call and say, you have to do this right now, otherwise there'll be a problem. Um, so make sure that you educate them about it so that they also feel comfortable in this day and age where lots of things are happening digitally. And, frankly, they were not used to doing it digitally in the past. So you have to, acquaint yourself with all of these pieces. Yeah.